to build a beloved community. And I don't mean just here at Whitney Center. I mean the community that respects people, even though our skin colors are different and our backgrounds are different and our wealth might be different and the way we structure our families might be different. All of that seems on shaky ground right now. Nothing feels sure anymore for people. And when that happens, I think fear could get in the way of living. I think fear could get in the way of living.
This podcast is for informational and educational purposes only and should not be considered medical, financial, or legal advice.
You may have noticed that with everything going on in the world today, people have been leaning towards something to give them a sense of hope, give them a sense of future. Traditional methods and traditional modalities aren't necessarily cutting it for a lot of people in terms of just getting through their day-to-day. And so what I have for you today is really an exciting conversation. I'm joined today by a woman. Her name is Maria Lasala, and she's the bright light of Whitney Center. And we're driving into how faith and spirituality can sort of support us as we move through and navigate some of the day-to-day challenges that we experience. I think it's going to be a really fun conversation. Maria Lasala is the spiritual care coordinator here at Whitney Center and a longstanding faculty member and lecturer at Yale Divinity School. She holds a Doctor of Ministry from Princeton Theological Seminary and a Master of Divinity from Union Theological Seminary. She did her undergraduate work at Barnard College in New York City. Maria served as a school chaplain and in congregational ministry for 3 decades, most recently as co-pastor with her husband at the First Presbyterian Church of New Haven, before joining us here at Whitney Center. Welcome, Maria.
Well, thanks, Elaine. I'm delighted to be here.
So excited to have you. How many years have you actually been here at Whitney Center?
It will be 10 in September.
That's 10 quick years.
10 wonderful years.
Wonderful. That's
Elaine,
really
I get to do what I love, and I love what I do.
And it shows every single day, let me tell you. It really does. I've been looking forward to this conversation for a while, and I think the reason for that is because it speaks more and more to this sort of deep shift that I'm feeling, that I think a lot of people might be feeling when it comes to, like I was saying before, sort of working our way from day to day into some understanding of how to navigate the ups and downs of life, quite frankly. Whether it's connection with nature or sort of a presence or a practice of prayer, I think a lot of people are seeking a way to just sort of steady the ground beneath us and be able to step forward and not have it feel bad, for lack of a better way of putting it. I know for sure peace is personal, right? Would you agree with that? Like, peace is a personal thing. It's not like the same thing for everybody.
Right. I mean, finding that sense of inner peace and calm will depend on your own history, family history, personal history, things you love to do, things that scare you.
Right, things that scare you. And nothing scares you ever, right, Maria?
Well, this might scare me a little bit.
I think you're doing really well so far. If it doesn't scare me, it doesn't scare you. So I think where I would like to go with this, because it is a timely conversation, is specifically understanding what spiritual care is. Just from your vantage point, you're a spiritual care provider, care provider here at Whitney Center. And I think everybody has sort of their own definition or explanation of what that is. And I just really wanted to be open about that, because from the get-go, it's not the same for everybody. And I don't want this conversation to make any assumptions about what that is for somebody. So what would you offer to that?
So in my role as spiritual care coordinator here, I find that just being present for people is important. Making time to hear stories, to walk with them along Main Street, for instance, to sit with them in the library, to comfort them if they've received some news. And I like to imagine it's important to have an ear to the ground that is Whitney Center, and then an ear to, my understanding of God as somebody who has brought us into being who we are today. And I walk with God every day, so I'm quite comfortable in that area. And for people at Whitney Center, that might not be the same experience. But what I can do is I can be a listening ear, a calming presence, a steady presence for people. Should they decide they want somebody to talk to who's not a family member,
Yeah.
or even their lawyer, for instance, or a friend.
Yeah, it's ironic. You're like, who do you want to talk to? Who do you not want to talk to? And people kind of see you coming down the hall, and I've watched it happen. You're this little bit of a magnet, and people are like, oh, there she is, you know? So it's a funny place to be, but I think oftentimes, and I don't get the sense that you do this, but I can see how if like in the case of myself, this is the case often, that is that we're looking for the perfect thing to say. We're looking for the right response. We're looking to share with somebody, oh, they're going through this, so let me make it nice. How do you find that?
I think, I mean, part of it is it's now years of experience of sitting with people, of praying with people, of listening to their stories, of kind of getting to know family, sitting in hospital rooms, listening to wonderful, joyful news and the hardest of hard news. And you're absolutely right. There's never a right thing to say. And sometimes saying nothing is the best thing. But I would say that probably my years of experience of doing this helps me perhaps offer a word or two that might be well received for someone.
That's interesting. Yeah. And were you always like this? Like, were you Maria Lasala at 10, 12, 14? That's
a good question.
I would love to hear a little bit about that journey for you and just kind of where this inclination came from.
It's a good question. I don't know. I wasn't a particularly religious, churchy gal growing up. I loved Bible stories. And if you ask people at Whitney Center, one of the most favorite things I love to do is the Women and Men in the Bible storytelling program.
Right.
Because I know these stories in my blood and I just tell them. They just come out. So I did grow up in a family of knowing Bible stories and being good storytellers. My dad's was a teacher. And so he loved teaching us, but also I think his personality was, this is how you can present yourself in the world. But again, church probably wasn't on the top of my mind, and it really was I want to say God works in mysterious ways. I don't know how it was
that you got planted here.
That I did. I was a student at Barnard College in New York City, and I was active in their campus ministry, and I thought I wanted to be a priest, but of course in the Roman Catholic tradition, which was what I was then, that was not an option for me. And I don't know, I kind of ended up meeting a woman who was studying at Union Theological Seminary, which was right across the street from Barnard College. And I never ventured over there because I just didn't know to. And she invited me to go to class with her one day. And honestly, sometimes I think it's like the heavens opened and the angels sang.
Wow.
And I knew that was where I wanted to be, to study. And it was the right place for me at that time. And I didn't know I was going to be a pastor or a chaplain until years later, when I finished my studies and I got a job as a chaplain at a girls' school in Troy, New York.
Right.
And suddenly I needed to know the Bible really well and teach it and teach world religions and sit with girls who were worried about, I don't know, their bodies and their families and what they were going to be when they grew up. And my listening skills got honed there, and my hand holding got honed there. And I walked with them. Sometimes I danced with them.
Such purpose, like in the thread of the whole journey.
Yeah. And I would say I had no idea, and I kept just following the lead.
Right.
And kept saying, okay, this door seems to be opening. I'll walk through it.
I'm going to hang out with you more. I need more of that in my life.
And here I am.
That's wonderful.
Here I am getting to do, as I said, the work that I just love to do.
So how many years have you been doing this work altogether?
Well, it will date me, but I have been doing this work for 40 years.
That's beautiful.
Starting as a chaplain at a girls' school.
That's beautiful. And I mean, and to be consistently engaged and invested in what it is that just lights you up, clearly,
Yeah.
just the way you speak about it. That's a gift,
Yeah.
you know? And I think that speaks to a lot of the people, even our listeners, because that's something so many people are in some way, shape, or form trying to connect with, I believe, as they seek out something that's bigger or more vast than themselves.
Yeah.
Because that is a theme that even some young people have recently shared with me, that they're just looking to find the ground underneath them. There's a lack of trust, I think, in some of the systems that are in play right now. And I don't think we have to be too specific, but just the condition of the world is not something that I think a lot of people are easily able to navigate. So to have some kind of a, soft place to land,
Yeah.
so to speak, whatever that is for them, is a really important thing. One question I have is, what have you learned about people, I think, in sitting with them in their experience as it relates to your own? You've had your journey, I'm sure, that has had ups and downs. I have as well. And when I'm in company with other people, naturally, I want to listen to their experience and be there present with them. But if you're a sensitive person and I sense that is who you are at your core, how do you navigate being present for others, but still holding space for yourself?
Yeah. I mean, life is messy. Life is hard.
Yeah.
For everybody. Absolutely. Everybody knows that their life can be messy and life can be hard. The circumstances of that messiness might be different for every single person. It's different for every single person. I like to say to people, we don't really know what someone had for breakfast in the morning, no less what they are carrying, right? And so, I always try to approach being with people with kindness and respect and compassion, because I might not know what they're carrying in when I see them. What I also know to be true is in the midst of pain and difficulty and sadness is also a lot. Oh, what happened?
It's okay. You can just put them back on. We'll keep going.
Okay.
So start from what I also know?
Yes. So what I also know to be true is in the midst of the hardness and difficulties of life, people have deep wells of joy. They absolutely do. It can be as simple as, having a cup of coffee with a friend, reading a book, walking in nature, as you said, finding those opportunities to just pause a moment from the hecticness of life and realize the blessings that are all around us. One of my favorite authors, Alice Walker, wrote a book called The Color Purple. And it's a great story. And I'm not going to summarize the story, but one of my favorite lines in that story is between the two characters, Shug, who's this woman who's really accomplished quite a lot, and she's a really beautiful, strong woman, and Celie, who has suffered an immense amount of trauma and pain and disrespect. And Celie is really doubting the presence of God in her life and kind of wondering why her life has turned out so bad for her and how she can possibly get out of it. And Shug is saying, look at what God is offering you every day. And Shug says, God gets really pissed off when you walk by the color purple and don't notice it. And to me, that has been the line that has filled my life every day. There's good out there, and we just need to open our eyes and see it. Because if we don't, that heaviness will just weigh on our hearts, and it will be so difficult, so difficult. The other thing I also know is when people are in pain, other people can carry things for you. You know, when your life is hard, turn to a friend and just tell them that.
Right, right.
You
And
know,
just the whole concept of asking for help
yes,
it's very difficult, let alone to tell somebody that you're actually experiencing discomfort,
and you
right?
just need a little help.
And
you know,
it's true. I
I
completely
mean, one of
agree
the
with
things
that.
that really, when people say, "How are you doing?" Do you really want to know how I'm doing?
Let me
Because
tell
if
ya.
you really want to know how I'm doing, I will tell you. But then you have to hold it with me. I'm asking you to hold it with me. So when I see people and I say, "How are you doing today?" And I listen for what they are feeling today. And it allows somebody to know that somebody has listened, that what they have to say matters, and that their truth has had a chance to be told.
Such good words there, because I think we miss opportunities left and right. You're absolutely right. And that's one of the big things that I've tried to instill in my kids as they've grown is you can get into a mindset where after a while, I mean, your neural pathways are completely conditioned in terms of your day-to-day experience. And I was just talking about my son Matthew, who's, my proverbial Eeyore. His narrative was so deeply entrenched in that day-to-day experience of, well, this is going to happen. Now I can only expect that something bad is going to happen tomorrow. And then before you know it, and unfortunately, I had 3 children behind Matthew. So they're listening to Matthew. I'm like, okay, everybody stop. You can't continue this. No. Like, how can we look at this differently? But those are kind of tried and true conversations, methods that you have to actually employ day after day after day. It needs to be as repetitive as those messages going in telling you this is a bad circumstances. You almost need to counteract that experience by swinging that pendulum in the
other
opposite way,
exactly.
really, really intentionally. And I think that when you and I were talking a little earlier about what gets you there, I think, at least in my experience, the one that comes to mind is several years ago when, you may remember, I started the Nautilus program here at Whitney Center, which I was so excited about. And that was just bringing something to life that was very enriching and good and would help people to see things through a positive light, right? But in the midst of that process, I had a very serious back injury. So for 4 months, I did not walk, right? So it was from January to the end of April. And with each passing month, my mindset, my everything about my being just went down like kind of a dart in the sand. And when I think of where my spiritual health went in alignment with my physical health, it was they were completely directly correlated, like one, directly related. It was a really hard walk back up. But I think I was mentioning this to you. What was interesting is how when I got angry, I mean, almost angry at God, like, really, this is the best we can do? Like, there's got to be another way out here. I'm sorry. I thought I was checking all the boxes. Right. And that's a big part of what we try to do, I think, in our spiritual lives is, well, I was good, so I get this, and this is how life should be. I think that's where I felt personally that I was most met spiritually, which was a really good experience because I think it kind of took me by surprise.
Yeah.
And when I got back up and walking, so to speak, and one foot in front of the other, it was sort of this microcosm of, all right, now let's walk forward. And I think that's where trust and faith is built.
Right.
A little
I
bit.
mean, so I love the Bible. I do. I love the Bible. And what I love about it is it tells the story of people whose experiences are very much like our own.
Right.
I mean, our experiences are not new to God or to the reality of life. It's not new. These are old stories that have been experienced by people before us. The book of Psalms, which is one of my favorite books in the Bible, is really about the prayers that people offer. Help me, help me, help me. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Wow, wow, wow.
Pretty basic.
Basic prayers, but prayers that have been prayed forever and ever and ever. And so there is kind of, I think when we are feeling most afraid and most lonely and most scared, worried about our families, afraid of what might be happening in the world, to be able to cry out or to silently weep, to acknowledge, I'm having a hard time.
Right.
There are words that have been echoed in the past that might offer comfort back. And again, just recognizing that when I don't have those words or my sighs are too deep for words, I look to somebody else to say, just hold me in prayer today.
Right.
Hold me in prayer today.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping the next day will get better. I hope the next day will be better. I hope the
Yeah,
next
because you
day will
don't
be
always
better.
have a remedy. You don't always have a go-to. And I'm curious, are there any consistent themes that you're seeing, like that right now you find people most need support in?
That's a good question. I mean, the world is a mess right now. That's not news to anybody. And I think people are worried. A lot of people are worried that the work that they have done to build a beloved community, and I don't mean just here at Whitney Center, I mean the community that respects people, even though our skin colors are different and our backgrounds are different and our wealth might be different and the way we structure our families might be different. All of that seems on shaky ground right now. Nothing feels sure anymore for people. And when that happens, I think fear could get in the way of living. I think fear could get in the
Such a
way
good
of
point.
living. And
It's subtle.
You know
It's
what?
subtle, Maria.
Right.
That fear
Right.
doesn't come out and say, "Hey, this is fear speaking loud and clear
It
to you."
starts to build.
Right.
It starts to build. And I feel like what I have noticed, at least here at Whitney Center, I've noticed that more and more people are at least, I don't know if they're returning or finding for the first time a sense of joy and security, maybe, safety, maybe, in returning. Like we have twice a month, we have a Shabbat service, and twice a month I lead a Sunday morning church service, ecumenical for people. They have grown in number in the last couple of years.
Here at Whitney Center?
Here
or
at Whitney
Okay.
Center. And I'll speak to the growing elsewhere too. But here at Whitney Center, when I came here 10 years ago, our Sabbath services were maybe 10 people. And now we have 35 to 40 people coming twice a month on a Friday afternoon.
Wow.
And many of those people will tell me they were not observant, or this was not part of their life consistently. They were raised Jewish, for instance, and so they know the prayers, but something has, I don't know, enlivened them to want to return, whether it's being in the community that is Whitney Center and surrounding themselves with people. In these days, whether it's hearing those words that offered promise thousands of years ago,
Right.
echoing back, whether it's the prayers that they said, maybe as children, that are somehow speaking to their hearts again. And I've noticed it on Sunday mornings too, where when I started a Sunday morning program at Whitney Center. I think I had 8 people coming at the beginning. In fact, I was looking at old pictures. We were meeting in the 6th floor common.
Okay.
I think I had 2 rows of 4 chairs each. Even Easter, I looked out on the East Rock and I had enough room for maybe 10 people. Now I get 35 people coming on a Sunday morning.
Yeah. The
To
numbers
sing,
are coming up.
to pray, I want to say maybe hear a word of hope and promise from a story that is so old and yet so new.
Right.
So, and I think that trend is not unique to Whitney Center. I have read and I have heard how people are returning to to some more traditional, like synagogue, churches, mosques, but also to finding ways again to talk about God and to maybe look however they might define God, but to look at ways to reconnect with that, with those promises of hope.
Well, yeah, and I really think that the word remember is important because it's so easy to forget
Yeah.
who we were, where we came from, what was meaningful, where our interconnection is. And nowadays, it's all about the very me-focused,
Yes.
kind of philosophy. And I think even the people that are me-focused are kind of tired of being so me-focused. They're like, there's got to be something more than this. When we were speaking before about this concept that my other son had brought to my attention that I had never heard before, called, he's dabbling in not having any alcohol. I'm like, well, that's novel. That's nice. That's a great idea. Sober
Soberish,
curious, right?
right, okay.
Sober-ish. Love it. I'm like, go with that, So sober curious. And I kind of equated that to a spiritually curious moment that we're at. I think people, this is what we're seeing. They're willing to explore. They're willing to experiment. I don't know what I don't know.
Right.
Never before have my kids thought they didn't know everything, or even people that I'm in community with, that it's this way, there's no other way than what I believe to be true. And I think when we start to dance in the space of what do I not know? What might be something I can learn here just from somebody else's experience? We don't all have to do it the same way. We can be human and be cooperative and enjoy space with one another and take advantage of things that are fantastic and still have our own experience. It doesn't take anything away from me if I don't agree with everything you believe. It doesn't, and vice versa, Some of the statistics were really interesting to me when I started to look into, just presence, prayer, spirituality, what we're seeing. And research suggests that spiritual practice can be meaningful support for mental health. One study, this is a Harvard study, suggests that regular religious service attendance is linked to approximately a 30% lower rate of depression. And that's not really surprising to me for a whole host of reasons, one of which is community. So I wonder if you can speak just for a minute to that segment of the population, be it here at Whitney Center or wherever you are. Is a sense of community sort of, I guess, a therapeutic space for counteracting some of these challenges associated with the loneliness that you're seeing? Like, do you see loneliness as a real prevalence from time to time or come in waves? Is it cyclical? Is it more, I know we talk about people that even as far as the time of year, this was a rough winter. There were a lot of sad people walking around. What are your thoughts on just that in general? How to manage some of our, I guess, propensity towards being sad or being depressed, and really how spirituality in some form can help us in that regard.
I mean, as we've been saying, these days seem very hard for everybody. Communities like Whitney Center.
Yeah.
We talk a lot. Oh, I should say we talk a lot about what we see here, which are dear friends who die. It's part of our reality here.
It is.
Part of our reality here. And we also talk about how we live. And I know that even when people feel alone, they can have opportunities to be with somebody else, to feel just a little bit less lonely, to feel a little bit less lonely. The trends from what I know, both being at the Yale Divinity School, where I see people, young and youngish people returning to school, many of them are arriving with no religious tradition behind them.
Wow.
They are spiritually curious, as you say. They are spiritually curious, and they are open to the ways the Spirit might be leading them to lead. Whether they lead as teachers, whether they lead as organizers for justice causes, or whether, surprise, surprise, they end up in congregations and are leading people in building community and building beloved community and helping children be raised up in stories of the Bible
Right.
that are both lovely and terrifying and horrible at the same time. So that spiritual curiosity is there, and even people who are rooted in their traditions, I think, should remain spiritually curious. So one of the things that I notice about the program that I offer in the biblical storytelling time is I tell stories that people know. They know in their bones.
Yeah.
And yet the way I tell them allows them to hear them as if for the first time. Oh, wow, that's so curious.
It's wonderful.
That's so curious. So spiritual curiosity is important. I think community is so important and getting more and more important. And, we know at Whitney Center, we try to build this community. We try to acknowledge our differences and the ways that we are strong together as well.
Sure.
And the difficulties that come when members of our community do die, and the joy we know when new people arrive. And the community is kind of always changing and shaping and being shaped in new ways. Spiritually, I don't know if people would name it that. That is what's going on.
Yeah.
That their hearts are being warmed or their spirits are being lifted. I don't know. I like to think that is what's happening. I like to think that in spite of what we might name it, it is what we are feeling and experiencing.
Well, and it's funny because, you know what? I have found that when I'm spiritually connected, and I don't necessarily have to be having a conversation with, my higher power and God, but I will tell you that some of the times where I feel most spiritually connected is when I'm doing things that I believe were gifts given to me by Him. So if I'm dancing, I mean, you and I have a love for dance, right? We're the dancers of the world.
True.
That's a joyous experience. Or if you're speaking with a friend, or you're supporting, or you're just walking in nature. We talked about that before. I think there has to be some measure of, I don't know, connection or whatever that we're making, a synapse in our brain, whatever it is, when those things are happening, that just makes it very real for us and brings us back that reminder space of sort of what feels good. So, just to kind of bring us
Well,
to
and
it.
if I may add to that,
Sure.
I think people who have had have been part of communities of faith. There are rituals that are part of those communities of faith. And I think remembering those rituals and participating in those rituals, whether it be as simple as, for instance, on Sabbath Fridays, eating motzi and having wine, bread and wine, and then on Sunday mornings having bread and wine. Those ritual practices of grace around a table.
Yes.
The ritual practice of praying for another person. The ritual practice of meditation or dance. Psalm 30 is one of my favorites because one of the lines is, "You have turned my mourning into dancing." And I do that every morning. I wake up and I let the cares of the world go by just dancing for a little bit.
Every morning. That's me. You
Right,
can see me in the
every
basement.
morning, just kind of moving my body,
Yes, 100%.
turning my morning into dancing.
Yes.
So the rituals matter too.
Right.
The very things that we participate or that we create when we create new rituals for our lives.
Really, really good point. Because I think we're creative beings. We're always going to be in a state of creating. And I think we can easily fall into the belief that what we've created is all we will create, and that the well is empty. There's nothing else in there. And a lot of this spiritual practice, I think, is in the exploration and just kind of experimenting. I guess I'll try this or I'll try that. I mean, this is where I'm at my age. I'm like, I think watercolor feels good to me this week. Maybe I'll crochet or knit a hat. I don't do these things all the time. But I know that that's where I feel connected. And I would just really encourage people to look at it through that lens to a certain extent if they are searching. So, along those lines, if somebody is just sort of dipping their toe in this water and wants to explore spirituality in a way that's bigger, how would you first encourage them? What would you encourage them with?
Well, I mean, just start by noticing things around you.
That's good.
Just kind of notice things around you. Open your ears to the sounds that you are hearing. Bird song now is all over. Oh my. I mean, how do we not smile when we hear bird song, really?
Truly.
And again, the colors are popping. Go look and find those purples.
They're out there.
Because they were created for a reason, to let us notice and see. I love living in Connecticut because I love the seasonal changes. All of these are little ways to start. I've said this to a number of people. I read a wonderful book, actually a murder mystery book that takes place with a community of librarians, and they're always researching the definitions for new and different words. And old words somehow sometimes make it back into our vocabulary,
right,
curiously or not. 2 words have stuck with me from reading that novel. The first word is called apricity. And the word apricity means feeling the sun on your face on a cold day. We had lots of cold days this winter, and I tried very hard to let the sun be warm on my face. I love the word apricity. The other word that I learned is called respare. It is recovery from despair.
Wow.
It has been my go-to word for these months when things have felt scary and shaky and uncertain, and I never know what news I'm going to wake up to. I take a moment for respare.
Oh, I love that. That's so powerful and so simple.
And so simple.
You know what? I really like where you went with that, because I think one of the things we're hopeful for in these conversations is that people can take something small away that you can literally try with the next breath. Like, it doesn't have to be profound or complex. And respare and apricity, I'm going to take those home tonight. Oh, Maria, I so appreciate this conversation and your sort of gentle, informed approach to just living life day by day. You have a huge presence here at Whitney Center, and I'm truly grateful.
Well, thank you so much, Elaine.
Thank you.
It's an honor and a privilege to be here. The care that I receive personally, and I delight in walking with folk here at Whitney Center, hearing their stories, and being present.
It's wonderful.
So it's been wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us. And thank you for coming to the Wellness Exchange.